Hello everybody and welcome to Indie Zombie Reviews. Say, do you like Castlevania? Who doesn't like Castlevania? So how about today I review a little indie Castlevania wannabe game called Citadel Gate of Souls. Citadel Gate of Souls, which came right out of nowhere, looks and tries to act like Castlevania. Too bad it's nowhere near as polished or as good as Castlevania's ever been. It goes for about $5 right now on the Wii U network, is heavily inspired from the Castlevania Simon's Quest and Symphony of the Night era, in terms of sound effects and some of the elements that they use. The main character having Alucard's hair, just not as well animated, and his sword, but not as cool either. But it's an unpolished piece of garbage. Now, just for note, okay, when I do these types of reviews, I don't intentionally go into a game wanting to hate it or wanting to shit on it or anything like that. When I first saw this, I thought to myself, hey, this looks like a really cool Castlevania type of game. It just turned out to be a really bad and disappointing game. The story is very Castlevania. The evil Lord's son fought, killed, and sent pieces of his body to different realms of the world. Heavily inspired. And is it just me, but even the scrolling of the text here is skittery. It's more noticeable when the cover art comes up. And I hate to harp on an artist, but even this cover is bad. And it's just holding here. In any other game, it would have just started by now. Oh, okay, there it goes. As the game starts, you play as Sonia, who's a girl. And why does this game have to tell you to get ready? And then there's this. I can change the viewpoint and bring up this map, which will let me just play the game on my gamepad, but why this? Even trying to use this is confusing. You can barely even see where you are, but you can at least kind of see what's ahead of you. It's unnecessary. Anyway, moving on. Much like Castlevania, you get ammo thingies and then sub-weapons. There are 3 and a healing item. The axe, which is slow and awkward. The holy water. What the hell? Okay, so I gotta make a reference here. Castlevania on Nintendo from 1986. Simon's throw of the holy water is longer and far more efficient. The axe is quick and effective, and then with the double shot made far more deadly. Hell, I mean, just look at this. I can stun and kill the Medusa head boss with this combo. Pwned, noob! A far better game from 1986, and this game was made this year. And this blade thing, I believe called a chakra, the only really effective one. The healing item, which takes about 5 ammo to use, but it restores maybe 3 or 4 of your life points. Here's another thing. They introduce all 3 of these sub-weapons in the same place at the start of level 1. But then they put them in odd places all throughout the levels, which can be quickly replaced by anything else, even the healing item, which just kind of makes them not very helpful. After a while, I just stopped picking things up or even using the damn weapons. The entire making of this game feels very amateurish. Right here, for example, I can't proceed. You wanna know why? Because you're supposed to jump over this piece of the environment that is off screen. It's only in the first level, but why build your level like that? And on top of that, when you often progress, You fall on top of an enemy or enemies. Yeah, that's nice. Enemies are just in clusters sometimes, at the beginning of the next panel of a stage. Yeah, that's fair. Unlike Castlevania, you don't jump back when you get hit. A slight improvement, but because of that, the enemies can just pile on you, and the hit detection is really bad at times. Your sword often feels so short, whereas Simon's weapon, the whip, has a great reach and kills quickly, depending on the enemy and the power of your whip that it has. Hell, even Alucard had access to different swords or weapons with different strengths. So yes, it's very much inspired by old school Castlevania, but man oh man, this is just an unpolished game. And worst of all, the boss fights feel absolutely pathetic. The first two bosses here are so easy. Now you go back to OG Castlevania, the same can be said if you know exactly what you're doing. But they offer no real challenge and just feel broken too. You got this plant woman who summons these vines and even minions. Every single boss in the game does that too. Avoid and just mash her. Easy peasy. The second boss is this bone dragon thing. He just flies around in this pattern and drops skeletons on you. But if you hit him, he won't drop them. And is it weird that when he dies, his body disappears, but just reappears as a demolished corpse? Like, nothing was animated. Kinda lazy. Also, I know this is gonna sound a little nitpicky, but I don't like how when the orb appears, you have to jump up to grab it. You just grab it and then that's it. I always actually really liked how in old school Castlevania, when you went and grabbed the orb, you had enough time to make Simon, do something really cool there at the end.
Strike a pose.
And then this weird glitch starts happening from here on in after the second level boss. Every time a new level starts, the game has to awkwardly load, and it'll zoom in on a part of the stage, and then start. And it makes no sense. It starts right where you previously were. And why this transition screen, too? You're not moving on, you're still there. Maybe it's a combo of the minimap loading, but this just feels poorly made. It has to be said, too, these levels are very short. Each level is about 4 screens long. At least the first 4 levels are, but there are only 6 levels in this entire game. Level 1 of Castlevania has 1 more screen, and they're longer, well-designed, and better structured. And then we move on to the third level boss, who's a ginormous pain in my ass. Not because he's hard or anything, just because he's cheaply programmed to be so. You're on this bridge and he'll come up beneath you if you stand still. But you can break this boss fight by just running about the stage and not stopping. He won't pop up, sure he may at times, but unless you stop for more than a second, he won't pop up. And what makes him cheap is when you hit him, an enemy will spawn from him and automatically hit you. And if you kill it, its blood is acidic, has a wide spread. If you're close enough to it, it will hit you. Even the boss has acid blood. But again, the hit detection here is so ridiculous. I can't hit him when I'm standing from here, but not while I'm ducking or even on the reverse. What's more annoying is that when these creature things come out, it's random where they'll be. Sometimes they're in the air or they're on the ground. I mean, just look at this. He first appears, I'm a good distance to hit him, but I get hit by nothing. What the fuck? So, which means you are guaranteed to get hit every single time just from hitting him. What the game wants you to do is hit and run. Otherwise you will die, which just makes the fight longer. Or maybe what they could have done is just programmed a far better fight, instead of just making it cheap and stupid. You can get a healing item before the boss fight, but you'll be so low on ammo for it that you'll be lucky if you can use it twice. And you take so much damage from this boss. It's ridiculous. Through sheer stupidity and force, I beat it. This took multiple attempts. Oh yeah, so I didn't mention this level and this level only, I believe, introduces platforms that fall when you step on them. And just from the second that you touch them, giving you practically no time to react. There's even one before the boss fight, before Sid's scream, and one on the end of the bridge. And best of all, regardless of if you're moving forward, the second you touch it, you fall. It's just cheap. This is not well-designed gameplay. At all. It's just a cheap, stupid death. Is all it is. Thankfully, you don't have to worry about lives or continues or anything like that. Just go back to the checkpoint while the game awkwardly reloads the level again. Every single time. Moving on! Next level! The boss is this insect thing that cannot hurt you. I thought at first maybe it was because I was ducking, but no, he can't hit you unless you deliberately touch him, but even then, this is inconsistent, and he might deal damage to you. Oh, but the minions certainly will. Dear God, game, this is the best possible example I have to show that you have no idea what you're doing. Finally, we make it to the pivotal Citadel. Hey, that kind of rhymed. Maybe. And we are introduced finally to Sonia's husband at the end of the level year. His name is... To be perfectly honest, at this point, I really don't care. The funny thing is that the game thinks that you care. If the game were better made, paced, and not filled with so many problems, I would. This is where the Symphony of the Night comparison comes in, but only here. While you're in the castle, or Citadel level, you have these two sections where you go to these different parts, above and then later below, for the rest of the levels. But that's very minor. Next boss fight, a giant eyeball. And here's something else that's worth mentioning. The boss fights don't actually start until your character touches the middle of the stage. Normally, in Castlevania, I know, last time, maybe. After you've moved through the rest of the screen, then the boss fight starts. It just feels more natural. This feels like a programming error, because that's also when the music changes too. An interesting note, before the boss of this level appears, you can get some free hits in on him. Only when you activate him. After that, you go all the way back up, but through this dungeon area. Why couldn't I go back the other way? Wouldn't that have been faster? But then the game wouldn't be longer, and you wouldn't have this whole other area to explore. Oh, right, padding. What happened to my hat? Finally, we get to the top here, and yay, more story! I can't do it! You have to! No! And then you fight Dracula. Literally. He looks like him, and fights exactly like him. He teleports about and throws minions at you. Sure guys, just cluster up the screen with more minions. Don't actually bother to program a challenging fight or anything like that. Let's just keep it cheap. Why is he in the air though and not on the ground? And he only seems to stop teleporting sometimes when you stop moving. Huh, it's very weird. Again, he's not that hard, which takes away from what the original challenge of Dracula was from Castlevania. No secondary form either, rather surprising. You beat him, and it's over. More story, and then the game ends. I thought there'd be more, and maybe you would play as this other character, but no, he sacrifices himself to stop the evil, and that's it. Barely an hour. That's how long it took me to beat this. Original Castlevania took me at least several hours, over the course of about 3 days or so. But this was a single sitting. See, the reason why I'm so heavily disappointed by this is because I am a fan of Castlevania. I didn't play it that much when I was a kid, but I grew so much more fonder of it as I got older, especially with something like Symphony of the Night. And I have come to reflect upon these games as just really good, solid platformer action games. And the sad thing is that with Konami seemingly not giving a shit, we're obviously never going to get a really good Castlevania game ever again, it seems. And we crave one so badly. Though the original maker of Symphony of the Night is working on his own Castlevania game with Bloodstained. Dear God, please let that one be good. I do have some good news, though. There is another indie title, which I reviewed a year ago, that is very much a Symphony of the Night Castlevania-style game. Magicians and Looters. $2 less, far better gameplay, and longer game time. Check it out. Support it. Well, everybody, that's my review of Citadel. Please click the like and subscribe button if you greatly enjoyed this video. I would really appreciate it. Everybody, I'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves.